Violence is the last resort.
That's better.
So in this country, and I think I've said this during this podcast, we have democracy, we have votes.
Well, I think we've agreed we don't have democracy.
Well, so
Yes.
when that doesn't work, what do you expect the people to do? Even when they think it doesn't work, it might work, but the fact they think it doesn't work anymore, well, eventually you'll get to violence, because what else can they do? And it's the object of the government to ensure it never gets to that. And that's why we need governments who are making sure the people are heard, the people feel like they're being heard. A bit like the criminal justice system, not only does justice have to be done, it has to be seen to be done.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've got politicians at the moment who are not making us see that democracy is being done in this country, because no one feels it is being done. So therefore we think it's not being done, and violence will always get to violence if people are unhappy, always.
There's an interesting, I was just, as you're talking now, and yeah, I mean, you say violence is the answer, but we've just seen in Bangladesh, it is the answer. Is it Bangladesh you said?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so.
Well, it depends what you mean by the answer, as in, is the answer...
It got the result.
It got a result. Will Bangladesh be any better the next day? No.
I don't know.
No, Bangladesh has always been a third world country and will always be a third world country. It'll always be full of corruption, and swapping one criminal leader for the next criminal leader you elect will change nothing. So hence why those countries are in that cycle, like most of Africa. It's that violence of overthrowing. We don't have that in Western Europe, and when we do have it, it's once in several hundred years. That might happen. French Revolution, the end of Nazi Germany, the Spanish Civil War. These are one-offs in these countries that may last for hundreds of years before it ever gets that.
But I think what I was saying is I think there's a commonality here, and I was reading about the Boston Tea Party, and the Boston Tea Party, which was the beginning of the American War of Independence, basically, wasn't it? That happened. The reason the Americans revolted at that point was because taxes had been imposed on tea or something like that. And it wasn't the fact taxes were being imposed, it was the fact they didn't have the right to vote.
Yes.
So they couldn't vote for or against the taxes.
Those taxes were about representation.
Correct, representation. And I think what is a great truth is, if you don't have representation, if a large number of people do not have representation in a community, in an environment, it ends in violence, in civil war, basically. And we go back to the fact we've agreed, and I think we're agreeing on this. This is not a democracy. The people now do not have representation of what even though they're voting or appear to have representation, they don't, do they?
No.
The people on the streets, the majority of people in this country, and don't forget, only 9 million people voted for Labour, which means how many didn't vote for Labour?
Yep.
Must be 30 million people didn't vote for Labour. 30 million people in this country do not have representation, and the grubby electoral process here doesn't allow them to have representation either. And when you don't have representation, it ends like it is now, doesn't it?
American Civil War is a good reference for this. The Americans did not want independence. They just wanted representation if they're paying taxes.
Yeah.
And the British government wouldn't give it to them.
Yes.
And treated them as criminals. And we then sent the army over. We tried to beat them down, and there was battles. It was only at that point then the Americans then went, we need to go for independence here now. Everyone before that point called themselves Englishmen. They were English. They'd all come over from here. They didn't want independence. They wanted to be under the monarch. They wanted to be English, remain English, but they were treated unfairly by the government, who didn't listen to their concerns.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening now.
That's exactly what's happening now. It's interesting. We're talking about these British Lions, as I'm now going to term these young guys who are getting arrested, and the same thing happened in Hong Kong. Remember the Hong Kong? A lot of these brave young Hong Kong guys went out there and got arrested. It didn't, unfortunately, didn't work in the end. But a lot of my sons came with me. Two of my sons. And I said, oh, what are your friends thinking about all this? To my younger one, who's 22, Tom. What are your friends thinking? They're not happy. They agree with me, Dad. That you know. I said, well, why aren't they coming? They're scared. They're scared of facial recognition. They're scared they're going to lose their jobs. They're scared of whatever. They want to be there, Dad, but they can't. They don't. They don't want to get involved. Now, this is what you've done, Starmer, you bastard. You know what you've actually done is you've actually scared the youth of this country to actually go and demonstrate. You've actually scared your population into not wanting to express their feelings on the streets by your approach to what's going on. That's what they've done.
They have, and that's been going on for decades, but it's changing. You only have to look at the Tommy Robinson March. 10 years ago, never would have happened. 10 years ago, half the people who went on that march wouldn't have gone on that march if it was led by Tommy Robinson, because they were fearful. I don't want to be classed as a racist, a Nazi, and stuff like that. But things have moved on so much now that people are going, well, I've heard about Tommy Robinson now. I've seen the documentaries. I've seen his interviews. What's he said that's wrong? What's he said that I disagree with? Nothing. They are targeting him to teach me a lesson. So people are beginning to realise that now. And I've said many times, Tommy Robinson has the right messages. He's just the wrong messenger.
Yeah.
He's easy to criticise because of his past. But that, but he's got more publicity now. Things are changing. It won't be that long now until those friends of your sons are on demonstrations.
You think so?
Well, once the violence dies down,
then
I can see more people turn up to those demonstrations.
Yeah, and I think my son's going, because his friends sort of laugh at me because of my views. I think they support a lot of what I say and a lot of what you say. A lot of them now watching these videos, by the way, yes. And they agree with most of the things that are being said. And whilst they have a laugh or a joke or whatever, I think it will also embolden them a bit more to think, well, maybe, if Tom's doing it, if Tom's dad's doing it, maybe I should do it as well. So I think that's why another reason I think it's important to do these things. And I've actually spoke when I've had a few meetings this week. People said, "Oh, how did your weekend go?" And I said, "Yeah, it was a good weekend. I went on a Enough is Enough march," and nobody has said to me, "You fascist bastard" or whatever. I'm not just talking about people who work for me. I'm talking about other people as well. In fact, one guy, a partner in a law firm in Manchester, a litigation partner. I said I went on Enough is Enough. I won't tell you his name. I went on Enough march. He said, "All right, good, well done." He said, I said, all that stuff about the far right, it's an absolute He said, "Lindsay, I know." He said, I have done multiple litigations against the papers. I don't believe a single word I read in the papers or see on TV. This is a litigation lawyer, highly qualified, highly educated partner.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe a word he reads in the papers. He said, the lies that they come up with, I've seen it. I've actually prosecuted them for these behaviours. He said, I totally know. I know exactly what you're saying. I know it's not far right people, but so people know. They're not stupid.
People have always known, and we can see that across Eastern Europe 20, 30 years ago with the fall of communism. They lived in countries where there was authoritarian rule, where the press was 100% propaganda, and you wouldn't speak to strangers about politics in case they were an informer. But between your family and friends, you had those conversations. You tuned into the BBC World Service because it was half decent in those days. You wouldn't do it now. It's social media now. And they knew what was going on. It's just that they had to play the game of, I don't believe these things and I need to be a party person. But no one believed it. But what happened in all those countries was it got to a tipping point. And when those countries fell and those regimes fell, they fell overnight. And nearly, I think all of them fell without a shot being fired. Because suddenly, you see the emperor's new clothes and everyone goes, "It's naked." And I just found out everybody else knows they're naked. What are we afraid of now? And suddenly overnight, the elite become afraid. And they run away. It happened across Eastern Europe. It's happened in many countries. And that's what will happen here eventually. But we're building up pressure in steam. And it always takes very courageous people at the beginning to do stuff.
Yeah.
And then other people join in, which then gives other people confidence to join.
Yeah.
And you get to a tipping point, and these regimes fall extremely easily and quickly once you reach that tipping point. But you're right, at the moment, lots of people know this is all BS. They don't believe a word in the press. They know they're not far right.
Are you getting, when you're talking to people, are you getting that sense as well?
I've been getting it for years.
Right.
Yeah.
But recently, I mean, in terms of what's gone on the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting a kind of mixed message from you here, Nick, because you and I have talked about this for a long, and I've come to previous chats of ours, and I've said, when is this going to end, Nick? It's just that, or whatever, and you said, oh no, this is going to go on for whatever. I'm getting a kind of glimpses from you, and a few of our exchanges on WhatsApp as well, where your view is changing. I think you're almost seeing that this could happen maybe faster than you thought it would happen a few months ago or a year ago. I'm getting a slight nuance change in your view. There was something you sent me, I can't remember what it was, and I said you'd written a great article. I read it, and I can't remember what it was now.
About Civil War.
About the Civil War, New England Civil War, and I think you've turned the corner, Nick, here, because your views seem to have your views seem to have shifted slightly into thinking maybe something could be coming faster than maybe I think.
To a certain extent, you're correct. I think the differential here is I've always been talking about what could come. I think what's happened now is this is the beginning of it. So we're at the beginning of the beginning.
Yeah.
If anyone's thinking this is a month for a year fight, they're wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
This is going to be at least 2 election cycles. So I think we're looking at a good part of the decade.
Yeah.
But this could be the beginning of the beginning. So now I'm talking in that context now, that things are changing. Up to a couple of weeks ago, I was always edging my bets that this may come, something may happen, but things have happened now.
Yeah.
I can't think another time in my lifetime, but even longer, unless we go back to the peasants' revolt and things like that, where we've got white people in this country rioting
on the streets. Yeah.
When?
Yeah.
Lots of riots in this country.
Yeah.
But they're always instigated by immigrants.
Yeah.
All the riots in the 80s, early 80s, Toxteth, Moss Side, race riots in Oldham. These are, the BLM riots in London. These are all instigated by ethnic minorities. I can't think of another time where it's been white people, and it's happening now. And for us to be at that point where white people are doing that, something's changed, something's happened.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the 3 dead kids, I mean something, a societal
level
has changed.
Something has happened, because you made the point before. We've talked about the Manchester bombings before, and the reaction to that I found unbelievable, that nobody was angry and rioting on the streets. And I think at the time you said, oh, blah, 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 whatever. I think you said, no, it's going to happen. Now, 22 people died in that. More than 3 little girls died in that one. More than 3 little girls died in that. This one, it's just 3 girls have been murdered. The reaction is completely different.
Oh, 'cause it builds on it.
Yes.
So that was the final straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't have happened if everything else that had gone on hadn't have happened.
Yes.
But we're a very tolerant nation, and we put up with a lot, and we're very forgiving, and we like to believe there's good in people, and we want to live in a civilised society and get on with our neighbours. And we keep accepting it. We keep accepting bombs. We keep accepting rapes. We keep accepting crime. We keep accepting 22 kids dying at a concert. And finally, 3 girls are stabbed to death. 6 others are severely injured. And that's the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah.
Can't take any more.
And the pathetic media as well. They're saying, oh, yeah, but he's not a Muslim. They don't get it, do they? It's not about the fact he's a Muslim. It's about the fact the guy is a product of uncontrolled immigration.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about 10 million people in the past 10 years coming into this country in an uncontrolled manner, not being integrated into the country, allowed to bring all sorts of cultural behaviours that are not appropriate or have never fitted in this country. That's what this is about. This is not about the fact he's a Muslim. It doesn't matter that he's a Muslim. everybody knew there would be some foreigner connection to this
Yeah.
guy. We knew it would not be an English guy who had done this,
Yeah.
a British guy.
You knew it wasn't far right.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yes, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point. And these pathetic, mainstream media saying, "Oh, he's not a Muslim, he's Rwandan, they're mostly Christian." Well, it's just bollocks. That's not the point, and they don't get it. They don't seem to get it.
We all presumed he was Muslim because Muslims are killing people.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a Muslim attack. But you're right, he wasn't a Muslim as far as we know. But that isn't the issue. These demonstrations are not an anti-Islam demonstration. They're an anti-immigration
Correct.
demonstration. I've talked about, last episode I talked about the French white guy masturbating in a park. He wasn't deported. I want him deported.
Yeah, of course.
And the Albanian woman who stabbed a 6-year-old to death in a park, I want her deported.
Yeah.
But when we talk about immigration, it's easy to shut people down by saying, "Oh, you mean black and brown people, you're a racist." Like, no, I mean black and brown people, as well as all the white and yellow people I want deporting.
We'll have the black and brown people as well as everybody else who's a criminal basically sent. Yeah, of course we will. Yeah, no problem. Couple of things now. First of all, I just read this. I think this is something to do with Tommy Robinson, but it's not Tommy Robinson. But it might be on Tommy Robinson. Oh no, it might be. It might be Brendan O'Neill. I'm not sure. So it starts. We fucking told you. Sorry to swear. Apologies. We fucking told you. We told you the politics of identity was toxic. We told you that reducing everyone to their racial characteristics was a dangerous game. We told you that treating some identities as oppressed and thus good, and others as privileged and thus bad, was a recipe for social conflict. We told you that demonising white men as a source of the nation's every ill would generate resentment. We told you your identitarian ideology would inflame racial grievance and even racial violence. We told you time and again. For the city elites to now look on with such startled horror at the racial riots rocking England is too much to take. It was their decades-long experiments in racial micromanagement and grievance mongering that paved the way for this catastrophe. These riots aren't fascism. They're the grim militant wing of your own racial fatalism.
Spot on. I've been warning about this for 2 decades.
Yes.
I know anyone who's done any history, read any history, done any travelling,
yes,
knows what's happened across the world. You cannot penalise certain groups of people without them ending up turning violent. You cannot have mass migration, or to a certain extent any migration into a country, without it leading to civil unrest once you hit hard times. This is the history of humankind. Our history for the 100,000 years we've been here is killing each other over resources.
Yeah.
That's what we've always done.
Yeah.
And we've defined who's in our group by different metrics. So it can be religion, it can be skin colour, it can be nation, it can be money, it can be anything. But if you're not in our group when resources are scarce, we'll kill all of you motherfuckers.
Yeah. Now, I sent you a clip of a guy called Raymond Ibrahim. Have you heard of him or do you know of him? I've never seen him before.
What's his name then?
Raymond Ibrahim.
Yeah.
Have you heard of him?
Yeah. His first name's not pronounced like that.
Is it not? Is
No,
it just...
Rabin.
Rabin. Oh,
Yeah.
it says Raymond here.
Unless it's a different guy.
He's got like long black hair. He's a little bit balding on top. Don't say what you mean like you.
No. It's a different guy.
Got a beard.
No, different guy.
Yeah. So he was talking. I don't know where he was talking, but it was a speech, and I sent you the clip. If you have a look, it's great. What he said is, and it's really interesting, and I want to talk about Islam now. I want to move on to Islam because we talked about immigration. What he said is, this is the first time in the history of the world that a civilization has invited another hostile civilization with open arms into their environment. And he's talking about Europe. And he said, he's American, he said, you have invited, the Europeans have invited, your ancestors in Europe spent centuries fighting tooth and nail against Islam to stop the Islamic invasion of the Christian society that you had in Europe, because you knew what Islam was about. Islam is about violence, it's about oppression, it's about the grooming of girls, it's about treating women badly, all those things, and you fought it for centuries. And then in the last 50 years, you welcomed them with open arms. And what you're seeing now is what you see always with Islam. You see violence, you see communities with more violence, with murders, with rape, with all these things now. And what do you expect? And he said the people in Western Europe are now saying, oh, we were wrong. We were wrong about Islam. Come in, guys. And part of the reason is because you've lost your Christianity. You've lost your religion. You don't understand it anymore. And you think, oh, we were obviously wrong for centuries. Now we're going to invite Islam in. And he's saying, you are now reaping exactly what you have invited in, basically. And I thought it was very, very powerful. And somebody said, well, what do we do? He said, is there no hope? He said, well, there is hope. You've got to wake up. You've got to see what's happening here. You've invited these people in, Islam, you've invited Islam in, and you're now getting exactly what because Islam, the nature of Islam as a religion, and Christopher Hitchens speaks far more eloquently on this, is by its very nature, is this, they regard us as infidels, they regard us as dissipated drunks, they regard us as people with no morals, and they think they're the good guys who are going to come in and fix all this. But with Islam, comes violence, comes rape, comes murder, comes intolerance, comes all those things, and it's with us now.
Lots of reasons for this. I've had a theory now for a good year that the First World War and Second World War basically destroyed us, because in those wars the best men of Europe, especially in the UK, died. Because if you're in a war, the bravest men are more at risk of dying because they will take chances, they will go over the top first, they will do stuff. Cowardly men will hang back. So the bravest men, the best of the men in Western Europe died over 2 wars.
That's interesting.
Which were 1 generation apart. So we didn't even have time to replenish that bravery gene because they got hit within 20 years, bang bang. UK, 1.25 million men died in those 2 wars. So suddenly that bravery gene is in short supply. At the same time, feminism's taking off. So we're over-feminizing the men that are left. So they're becoming more like poor versions of women. Too tolerant, too touchy-feely. And because of the horrors of the Second World War and the concentration camps and stuff like that, and guilt over empire, because most European countries are empire, we then look to the rest of the world and we go, oh, we feel sorry for them. Why can't, like school teachers do, group hugs, we're all winners, let's all get a certificate. And that was the beginning of the downfall of the West. We became too weak because of those wars and because of feminism. People started coming into the country and we ignored every problem they ever brought because it's rude. It's rude, and what we're going to do, how we're going to solve it, we've got no idea. We'll ignore it, it'll go away. What we'll do is we'll create an anti-bullying policy in the school. That'll solve the bullying. Well, no, policies don't solve bullying. Action solves bullying. And so we just created new laws, anti-terrorism laws, and no one ever at any point wanted to tackle the real issues, which were severalfold. Mass immigration, no integration or assimilation, a foreign religion that's largely based on warfare, because that's what Muhammad was. He was a warlord.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I've got many Muslim friends who are not warlords, and
of course.
But
that's why it's complicated, isn't it? Because there's lots of Muslims who are not violent, who don't want to rape young white girls in Rochdale, who don't want to run around the streets with machetes.
Yeah.
Of course there are.
Yeah.
But there's a lot who are like that.
There is. And then the next thing is the third world. We're importing, regardless of religion, we're importing people with no education. I think something like half the immigrants from Africa can't even write in their own language. So illiterate, uneducated.
How do they get in then?
Just money, but you're here. Dead easy getting in now, isn't it? But all these things, we're just importing the dredges of the world, criminals who have been let out of jail. Well, I'm not staying here anymore now. There's better people to rob up north, so they go up north. They migrate north like the lions do after the wildebeest.
Yeah. Follow the herd.
And then the psychopaths. No one trusts me now in my town, village, country because they've all realised I'm a psychopath. I need to move to find other people that I can abuse and I can live off, who don't know I'm a psychopath yet. So we're importing the dredges of the third world. And even the best of the third world isn't that good. And we're not getting many of them, we're getting the dredges of the world. So that, including our weakness, a warlord religion, and all those things, it's just absolutely killing us.
And we seem to have forgotten, don't we? We seem to have forgotten about this centuries-long fight against Islam and stopping it invading our borders and our country. They got as close as Vienna, didn't they? In this
Vienna and the Pyrenees in Spain,
Yeah, they got close and they fought back. But now
that's why there's Muslim communities in Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
That's what those wars were about. Bosnia and all that. That's because of the Muslim community there.
But now they're just amongst us.
That's because there's no brave men anymore, because we've depleted the bravery gene. So only few brave men now. Those genes have almost been eradicated, and over feminized men. We're women. Women don't want to fight people. Women want to all get along. So let's get along with Islam. Well, let them come. We can live side by side because they're just like us. We're all lovely people. Let the murdering rapists from Rwanda, let them move here. They've seen horrors in their country. They'll never commit horror in our country because they've learned now and they appreciate moving here. So these are all feminist traits, feminine traits that we've over feminized men.
In terms of the sorry, there was something else I wanted to talk about as well, which is this guy who killed these three young girls. What, do you remember what his name is?
No.
It's something.
I don't want to know his name.
It's like something like Rwanda, or whatever.
Yeah, I want to forget. I want the world to forget his name.
One thing that's really made me feel sick is the way they're portraying him all the time in the media as a young, innocent boy. Have you seen this?
Yes. Do you know he was in a BBC Doctor Who?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you saw that, right?
Yeah, of course the BBC have got to be involved in this shit, haven't they? But the worst thing is they're not. He's an 18-year-old man now.
Yeah.
He's not a kid.
Yeah.
But they're showing pictures of him as a child and saying, "Oh, he's got mental problems."
Yeah.
He's a freaking murderer. He's a horrific murderer who's killed three beautiful young girls. And they almost seem... Am I imagining this when I'm seeing this?
Do they ever show Tommy Robinson as a 6-year-old? And say the far-right thug just arrested, he's there going,
Yes.
They don't, do they?
Yeah. Why would they not have any pictures of him as an adult?
Propaganda. It's all about controlling the narrative. You're less likely to hate him, be violent against him, be violent against community, demonstrate when you can see an 18-year-old man.
There's a sketch of him in the police station. He's got a great big wedge of hair.
Yeah.
He's a big black man.
Yeah.
But they're not showing that on those pictures. No. It's he was in Doctor Who, and he's like, they're almost...
That's to make you feel sorry for him and not hate him, in which case you're less likely to commit violence.
But who the fuck is, sorry, pardon my French, who is coordinating this?
They're doing it themselves. Don't forget, the BBC and Sky News are not being forced to do these things. They believe in these things between themselves.
Yeah, but are Sky, the Telegraph, the Sky News all saying, let's just put pictures of him on as a little innocent looking boy on there?
Yeah, they've got selection of photos and they're going to themselves, do you know what, the riots in the streets, we're going to be safe. Let's show that one, because no one can accuse us then of trying to incite more violence. Let's put the nice pictures on. And this is what happens under authoritarian states. We think all these organisations are being told what to do. That's impossible. What you do is you give these organisations the incentives to want to do it themselves. And that's what happens. And these have been the incentives over decades now. This is learned behaviour.
But I just think that's quite grotesque. He's a horrific murderer, a man who has killed 3 little children and badly injured 9 others. And they're putting pictures on as an innocent little boy and saying he had mental issues when he was...
No.
Did they ever say that about about the white thugs who were thrown...
They never have mental health issues.
Yeah, they haven't got mental health issues. They're just right-wing thugs who need to be thrown in jail.
The Nigerian who hacked almost to death the army soldier, the army captain, whatever he was. Yeah, straight away, mental health issues. It's become a meme on social media now. Whenever someone's arrested of an ethnic minority, there's a meme then going, oh,
Yeah.
mental health issues.
Has Tommy Robinson got mental health issues because maybe his father was a bit tough on him when he was young, and that's the reason he has those views? No.
Yep.
He's just a right wing thug who's now being threatened with being locked up when he returns to England, even though he's been on holiday.
Yeah.
It's just obscene, this stuff, Nick.
Again, two-tier policing and a two-tier reporting system. Everything's two-tier. You have ethnic minorities here, and we treat them like this, and within that we treat them differently because look how they treat Jews.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Jews.
Oh yeah, there's certain ethnic minorities we don't want around.
Exactly, exactly. So we treat them like that, but white working class, we treat them like this. So and everyone does that all the time, from the universities to the RAF. So RAF wouldn't let white men get pilot jobs because we want to do this. Our police force will give other people jobs over white people. The press, the BBC had a project to attract more young black people into the newsroom, or wasn't open to white people.
They did the same in my son's accountancy firm. One of the big top firms, I think it was either PwC or KPMG, had a black-only application for certain...
So this is throughout the whole society where you were demonising white straight men the most. Other people were demonised depending on what boxes you tick. Young white gay men now are treated just as bad as young white straight men.
Because they're not trannies.
The gay card doesn't work anymore now.
Yes. Because gay men now are actually, they're not accepting the fact that they're actually trannies, basically. Yeah. That's what it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
20 years ago, you could play identity politics by saying you're a Jew. That doesn't work anymore now. Now that you get treated even worse now. So there's these oppression Olympics where you're a victim depending where you are on a scale, and we'll treat you accordingly. So the press doing it's nothing new. Everyone's doing it.
We talk now about two-tier policing. So I sent you a video, I don't know if you watched it, with a guy called Wesley Winter in London, and he went on the protests in London the same time I was at the one.
I think I saw a little bit of it, yeah.
And the beginning was really good, and I thought this looks really interesting. And he went on the march as a journalist, and he looks slightly Chinese or Asian, does Wesley Winter. But he said he's just a young guy, and he said, I want to see what's going on here, So I don't think he had an agenda. He certainly wasn't a right-wing thug.
Yeah.
And he spent the day with these people on this protest march. Enough is enough. It wasn't the Tommy Robinson one. It was enough. And as the day went on, he was chatting to people. People were expressing their angst, saying, we've had enough. These girls being killed. We've got to stop this immigration. It's getting out of control. Things all perfectly reasonable people. A lot of working class people there, whatever. But then, if you watch it to the end, and he hasn't, unfortunately, and it's had something like 2 or 3 million views, this thing. But if it actually put the most important bit at the end, they would kettle these people into an area not allowed to leave, and getting more and more irate. And then as he stood in this crowd, videoing, recording it, people were picked off one by the police and arrested around him. So he was standing, it was like I am Spartacus. One by one they were picked, and he said, they're being arrested, maybe they've been spotted doing something. But he'd been with these people, they'd not been violent all day. And he's like, I'm not sure. And then at the end, they arrested him. And he's like, hang on a minute, I've been in the crowd, there's a video record of my day with this. Yeah. I've not been doing any violence, I've not done anything antisocial. I've just been filming and recording this as a journalist. Yeah. And they arrested him. The police were arresting everybody at the end. Yeah. They kettled the group in there and picked them off one by one and arrested them.
Yeah. And they did that, to send a message to those people for next time, don't come. I've been told you need to rack up your arrests. We want hundreds arrested, so now they're grabbing anyone and arresting them. There was a video online where you can hear a senior police officer give an order to go get some of them, and the officer says, who, which one? And the senior officer shouts, it doesn't matter. And they run in and grab people. The GB News presenter, Martin Dobney.
Yes, you know him, don't you?
Yeah, was stood there recording it on his phone, and a police officer jumped on him and handcuffed him straight away. It was only that another police officer said, no, he's on GB News, okay, let him go. He was stood there filming things in his suit, shirt and tie. He just left the office.
And I think since then he's been really angry, hasn't he? Since then.
So, again, two-tier policing.
But the example the other way around, there's also recording, and I'm sure you've seen this. Muslims in, I don't know where it is, it might be Birmingham.
Yeah.
I think some of them have got weapons.
Yeah.
And the cop was talking to them, and
Yeah.
he said, "Oh yeah, you know, just can you keep that for a while? Because some far right thugs were coming. No, basically enough is enough. Protest was coming down the street. Keep back, guys." He said, he actually said, and it's taped.
Yeah, I've seen it.
He said, "We're here to help you. We are here to protect you."
Yeah.
So the police are there to protect the Muslims, but not protect the English people who were doing the enough is enough marches.
Well, that gets worse. Or there's a different one where he says that, and then he says to the crowd, "Go put all your weapons back in the mosque."
Oh yes, you're right.
So go put all your weapons back in the mosque.
So if those are white guys with weapons, they'd be in the police van as soon as you...
Horses, everything would be going.
Yeah, correct.
We saw Birmingham last night, riots.
That's another thing I was going to mention. No, carry on. No, I was literally going to mention that.
Yeah, so, gangs of, dozens or 100 Asian youths all tooled up, going round, assaulting people, and they're not called far right, they're not called Islamists, they were protecting their neighbourhoods.
Yeah, they're there to protect their community against the far right.
And
they were driving around the roundabout, skidding around, dangerous driving around there, people standing there, weapons, masks.
Yep.
No police at all to be seen.
No. Again, we keep saying it, two-tier policing.
It's worse than that.
I've not seen any videos. I'm not saying they don't exist. I've not seen any videos of groups of white, far right people walking down targeting individual Muslims.
No.
I think I saw a taxi being smashed up and there's a guy, I presume it's a Muslim guy inside it. So there's one. But no.
But I have seen Muslims attacking white people. They dragged that guy out of a pub and gave him a hell of a kicking.
Yeah.
And somebody else was stamping on his head, a Muslim crowd again. But we hear nothing about this, do we?
So the violence at the moment from white people is verbal, damaging shops and attacking the police. The violence at the moment from groups of Muslim men is proper violence. And they're not being tackled because, again, the government is saying they're victims. They're victims. They're just protecting themselves. And it would have been nice for these 200 or 100 Asian men with weapons to have come out and protested about the rape of 100,000 white girls. Come out and protest about the blowing up of the arena. I keep saying this, but where were they when other things were going on? Why didn't they come out and protest about the Rwanda stabbing to death 3 kids? It could easily have been their kids he stabbed. Why didn't they come out then and join the Enough is Enough saying, we don't want any more children dying? Why didn't they do any of that? They didn't do any of that because they don't care. Because they weren't their children. And even if it was their children, they killed their children anyway. With acid attacks, honour killings, and girls aren't as valuable as boys. So they wouldn't have come out anyway. But they come out...
You gave that example of that guy who brought his bride over from Pakistan.
Bangladesh, yeah.
Bangladesh. He got bored of her and killed her.
Killed her, yeah.
Yeah. This is not an unusual characteristic of it.
So they're not that upset that 3 girls have been stabbed to death. Because, I'm sure they are. Some of them really are. I'm sure they are. But I'm just making the point that they don't come out and protest anything in the country.
Muslims outside your house tomorrow.
Anything in the country that everyone else cares about. But that's identity politics. We only care what happens to our identity, our group. So if 10 black men were raped to death by Chinese men tomorrow, the Muslim community wouldn't care.
Yeah.
Well, we should care because we're all human. We live in the same city, the same country.
There's a massive cultural difference between the Muslim, the Islamic theology and the British. Even though religion is dead now in this country for white people, we are fundamentally Christians.
Yeah.
We have Christian beliefs and we follow Judeo-Christian traditions all the way through. But Islam is just totally different to that. It's a totally different religion to ours. Totally different belief system, totally different ideology. And people are trying to pretend it isn't, but it is.
Oh, it completely is. But a lot of this I don't think is down to Islam itself. This is down to culture, I know religion's part of culture, but I don't mean religion itself. It's down to the third world, importing people there, and it's down to non-assimilation.
I think the biggest issue is uncontrolled immigration.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to summarise this, I think, because I think it can be summarised very easily. The biggest issue facing this country is uncontrolled immigration. That 10 million people have come into this country in the last 10 years. The biggest issue within that uncontrolled immigration is Muslim uncontrolled immigration. The biggest percentage of the uncontrolled immigration that's causing the problem is the Islamic side of that, basically, because their cultural differences are even greater than some of the other cultural differences we'll see. That's why. So that's what's causing all the problem. And that analysis traps what happened in Southport as well, because that Rwandan family, their kids or whatever, because of the speed that so many people are coming in here, they don't have a chance to assimilate, to become part of the community. Will be fed at school. That little black kid, I'm now making him up. He wasn't. He's a man. He will have been fed at school a diet of white men are bad. Yeah, black people are good, brown people are good, white people are terrible.
Yeah.
We've been treated black people awfully. He'll have been brainwashed by the mainly female teachers at the school about how shit the country he lives in is and how bad white people are.
Yeah.
That's part of it as well, isn't it?
No, absolutely. It's self-hate from the UK, hating ourselves and thinking that everyone else is better than us, of evil culture, stuff like that. And you can... we've always been poor at integration from Windrush onwards, but certain people from certain countries are easier to live with because there's some shared traits there, such as alcohol. So, black people, you can go for a drink with them after work, and that's where you bond. Muslim people are not going to go for a drink after work, are they?
No.
So, and they eat different type of food, so we can't even go for a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the West Indian community integrated well. Bear in mind, my dad was part of that in the 50s. I think that community, there are higher violence stats around West Indians. I know that. It's all, but I think they generally integrated better as a group than the Muslims have. Are you right?
No, of course, because there was less of them.
Yeah.
So sensible, you've got to integrate because
you're
not going to start a community.
Yeah.
There was none of this woke nonsense then, and we had lots of similarities.
Yeah.
But then, as more and more immigration came, more and more people don't have to integrate now because there's 10,000 of us here. We can just have our own little town.
A little Somalian community over here.
And no one has to speak English, and we can do whatever we want and blah, 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 blah. And we're being told by the government that we can do whatever we want. We don't have to integrate, so they don't integrate. But then tens of thousands more and more, millions more over years, and it's just built a problem. The Windrush generation were a problem because no one wanted them. They weren't invited to come here. They weren't wanted by the people of this country to begin with. But then it just got worse and worse and worse as we added more and more and more people to the country.
Yeah.
And then we started adding lunatics and criminals and rapists. And then we can't deport anybody.
I'm assuming that Kurdish guy who pushed somebody onto the train had come over in a boat, had he?
I've no idea, probably. Won't be able to deport him because Kurds are badly treated in the 3 countries they live in.
And he's got mental issues.
Mental health issues, yeah.
I want to talk about
There was a time once, there was a case where we couldn't deport an African guy because he had AIDS and NHS have a duty of care for him now. So we couldn't deport him. And he was a violent criminal, rape or whatever. We couldn't deport him because he relies on the NHS for his AIDS medicine. It's like, how mental are we?
Yeah, bloody hell. I want to talk about the heroes of this past 2 weeks, of who there's not many, if I'm being candid. And I have been disappointed with Nigel Farage here. I think this is a time for him to stand up. He's now in government. He could say far more than he has said, but I think you said he's a politician.
Nobody knows how this is going to pan out. There's no brownie points for anybody to be on the side of the rioters and the looters. There's no brownie points for that. If you condemn them, which is fine, I'm sure he has, and you try to separate yourself from them but try to represent the average people on the street, the press will tar you with that same brush, and then you're basically the new Tommy Robinson with a reputation that you'll never clear. And so people are being very careful of jumping in too soon when you don't. I mean, let's say I went with you on Saturday.
Which is what I'm going to talk about later.
Oh, well, I'll get to that then.
Because I'm going to say potential here. So the biggest hero for me is not an Englishman. It's a guy called Elon Musk.
Oh, the African-American guy.
The African-American guy. Now, he has done more, I think, than anybody else for the dispossessed people of the country. In terms,
let me just add on to that. Him, I agree with, but the two men who ran in the play group in Southport to stop that crazy guy killing more. Them two.
Yeah.
I would like.
Sorry,
I don't want us to forget them.
Sorry, no, you're right. I was kind of talking about.
I know what you meant. Yeah.
National people who are actually doing something positive. Yeah. So Elon Musk has done two things. First of all, he when Tommy Robinson made a tweet about the fact that Keir Starmer was doubling down on the people, he put 2 exclamation marks. I don't know if you saw that. So he interacted with Tommy Robinson, and Tommy Robinson said, thanks for being that support. You know, he was expressing surprise. Then Elon Musk, when Starmer tweeted something about we look after the Muslim fucking community, he said, why not look after all communities? Yeah, which is the exact point we're all saying, isn't it? Look after the community in Southport. Look after the community that sends their little girls to Taylor Swift dance classes. Yep. Look after that community as well. Look after the little kids who live around here as well. Not just the freaking Muslim community. You know? So,
all communities.
All communities. So he did that. And I think he's also said somewhere, and I've not seen this tweet because I'm not on Twitter, I think he's also said something around that this will end in civil war, which I'll come back to. I'll come back to that later to you. Another hero I think is Tommy Robinson, who's kept his cool in this. He's not been provocative. His statements have all been very measured and reasonable. But he's been castigated, called a far-right thug, even when he's on holiday with his kids, basically, over there. But he's still vocal, he's angry, and he's doing that. And he's now becoming a focal point, I think. What's it called when people congregate towards him? I think people, as you say, are starting to think this guy is the only man. And he is bloody brave, Nick. You know, whatever you say about Tommy Robinson, he's brave. The number of times he comes, he gets involved, and he gets arrested, and he fights it all the time.
Yeah.
He's a very, very brave man.
He gets assaulted all the time.
All the time, yeah. I think these are the men that we should be admiring, not these arsey people like Starmer and all these grubby people. These are the real heroes. And Musk, thank God for Musk, because if it wasn't for Musk, Twitter wouldn't be free as it is, and we wouldn't be finding out about half of this stuff, would we?
I think we're in this position today. This has been accelerated because of Twitter. I think if he hadn't born Twitter, I think sharing this information and seeing those video clips and having these discussions would have been extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So I think he's done a world of good buying Twitter.
Are there any other heroes that you would like to mention? We obviously mentioned the 2 guys who stepped in and stopped that.
At the moment, it's too early to tell. We have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea, is this just a prelude to what's going to happen in a few years' time? This could all die down next week and it all ends. And this wasn't really the beginning of the beginning. It was just a taster of what's to come. There is no heroes at the moment in this. All there is at the moment is villains. So Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper, the police. I set a fundraiser up last week for injured police officers because I was seeing what's happening to them and they're being told what to do. And the amount of abuse and backlash I've had.
I wouldn't have done
that. What I'm trying to say to people is, yes, we have enemies.
Why don't you set up a fund for the people who've been arrested to get a legal defence fund for them? That'd be better.
Because we're trying to win this war. So
I think that sometimes you're a little bit out of touch, I think, Nick.
No.
Things like that. I could have told you, if you'd rung me and said, I'm going to do that, I'd have said, don't do that.
Oh, I knew I was going to get back. I didn't think...
There's no sympathy for the police. And by the way...
I knew that.
By the way, the police get loads of our money and they can, if an injured policeman will get lots of money, don't worry about that.
I knew I was going to get backlash. I didn't think I was going to get this much backlash. The point I'm trying to make, and I talk about it in the campaign, is
Have you taken it down now?
no, just leave it up. I'm still advertising it. If we're going to win this fight, we can't fight everybody, because the chances of us beating the government are almost zero. What we need to do is start picking off some of their supporters, their tools, their weapons. They're using the police against the people. Many of the police won't agree with what they're doing. If we can get them on board, like other countries do, where the police are told what to do and they go, no, we're putting down our riot shields, we're not doing this to the people. That's how.
That happened in Venezuela, didn't it?
Well, that's how you speed up the end of the authoritarian state we're living under. You don't do that by persecuting police officers.
Yeah, I know, but don't be proactive though.
You do it by trying to signal to the police officers, we're on your side. We know you're doing a job you have to do. We're on. We can't make everybody our enemies and then expect to fight them all, because again, that's
you should have set up a fund for the people who are arrested. They're arresting people for not committing crimes. That's where we need to send the money to support those people.
But that achieves nothing in the war.
I'm talking about the right thing. The right thing. If you're going to send up a fund...
Yeah, but that'll achieve nothing.
I don't care.
Yeah, but I want to win the war. We need to be careful. We've got too many people who want to fight the battle, and are not.
I think you're being too calculating, and people don't like that. People want to see real emotions in this situation. They want to see real feeling. Like Tommy Robinson, they want to see people who really care, who don't have an agenda, a political agenda to get there. Because what you're doing here is you're just becoming another politician.
And becoming a strategist about how we win the war. There's no point having a million Tommy Robinsons all screaming about what we want and doing good work, and 20 years from now we're in exactly the same situation.
Yeah, but he's made a difference, hasn't he?
What difference has he made up to now?
He's made a difference. He's starting to. It's a long fight, and he's mobilising the people. That's what he's doing.
So yes, but at the moment he's achieved nothing.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say he has achieved nothing. No.
Well, he's been fighting for 20 years.
Listen to what he's doing.
He's been fighting for 20 years, bravely.
Yeah.
And everything in the country's got worse.
Yeah.
So he hasn't achieved anything. So
no, but he's here now when he's needed.
But he hasn't achieved anything yet.
Yeah, but it's like saying Gandhi didn't achieve anything for 30 years. This is the nature of revolution. This is the nature of heroes. This is the nature of leaders. They don't try and calculate what their end game is. They just try and do the best they can. That's all he's done.
And that's why many of these people are always defeated. So I want change in this country. I want long-term change and sustainable change.
Well, cancel your police benevolent fund then. I want to talk about... You should have told me you were going to do that. Could have warned you what was going to happen. I do wonder sometimes whether you haven't got your finger on the pulse. So, the Enough is Enough march, which I went to in Manchester on Saturday, Nick. You weren't there. What people, when everybody was there and we were kettled in, people were trying to articulate their feelings.
Yeah.
And a lot of them couldn't articulate their feelings because they're not particularly articulate, haven't got great vocabularies or whatever. But some of the guys actually made some good statements. But what would have been great there, Nick, and this is a plea from me to you, if you had been there, and I'm prepared to buy the megaphone, by the way, if you had been there with a megaphone, you could have articulated some of these ideas to the crowd. Because one of the little guys did something, everybody gave a round of applause. They were looking for somebody a focal point. They were looking for somebody to bring them together, somebody to express their views that they could respond to and applaud to. And I remember during the COVID demonstrations, there's a character in Manchester, I can't remember what his name was. I think I mentioned him to you when that's around the time we first met. And he was a gym owner or whatever, a guy, but he's the one who organised the COVID events.
Oh, from London?
No, he's a Manchester guy. He's a bodybuilder type guy, but he brought it together, and then he would be there with a megaphone, and he would make speeches, and people would make speeches around him, and he brought the crowd together, and he kept the crowd together as well, and we needed that on Saturday, and you could have done that. Are you going to do that? Because I think that would be great for the people. I think, firstly, the most important thing, it'll be great for the people, for the Enough people, to see somebody and you have a reputation, you're an MBE, you're an authority, you're not an authority figure,
Yeah.
but you're somebody who has gravitas, personality, and people. One of the guys there knew you because he said, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, "Oh, well, I'm not from anything." He said, and I said to him, "Do you know Nick Buckley?" He said, "Yeah, I'm something like Parents Against Grooming, and
Oh yeah.
you know him,
Yeah.
like white hair and glasses."
Yeah.
Can't remember what his name. He told me his name. He said, "I'm in Parents Against Grooming." Oh, I know Nick. Yeah,
Yeah.
give sending my regards.
Yeah.
But they were looking for somebody there to be there for them, to articulate what they were feeling, and there was nobody there for them, which was disappointing, I thought. That's why I texted you and said you should be here, Nick, because I think you could have made a difference. Is that something you would contemplate doing?
I have been contemplating it.
Oh, sorry, before you say that. So what I was going to say was, I think if you did that, that would be great for the people there, because they needed somebody. They needed and I won't say a leader, but they needed somebody there to express and articulate their feelings. Somebody that had the gravitas to do that. And secondly, I think for you personally, where you are, your profile, because I think the cameras were all, there were loads of press there, desperate to get a picture of some right-wing thug doing that. If you did do something like that, it would be in the press and your profile. And people want to see a leader coming out of this, or want to see leaders coming out of this.
Yeah.
And I think this is an opportunity. We know your views are what we believe to be the right views in terms of what these people think as well. And I think it would, you know, in terms of your profile, your social media profile, everything like that, I think it would just take off.
Well, I wouldn't do it for those reasons. I wouldn't.
I said the first reason is that people need somebody.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, actually, Nick, if you were here now, your profile would just take off, because people would say, because it would also give some credibility to the thing as well, because you've got, you know, you're a proper establishment person, society person, an MBE, you're an actual, you know, charity. People know you're a good guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they won't go like. So I was just thinking it would be good, and I'll buy the megaphone.
No. So are these
You don't
all?
have to show this bit on YouTube.
No. These are things that I am thinking about. It's what's the right time, what's the right message.
The message was simply to say, we're here today because of the following. We're here today because 3 little girls were killed in Southport. Why were they killed? They were killed because this country has lost control of, this government has lost control of immigration. Yeah. We're here because a soldier was stabbed in such and such. We're here because our kids can't afford rents. Yeah. We're here, you know, all the things
that we talk about.
That we talk about. They want to hear that, but they want to hear somebody articulate that. They know they're angry. They know some of the reasons they're angry, but they don't know all the reasons they're angry. Oh, sorry, they do know them, but they can't articulate those reasons. And I think, you know, it would have been, and there are characters, as Paul Thorpe, there's another guy I watch now, who are totally embedded in our argument, and they have massive followings, and they just, all what they are doing is articulating for the people what they're feeling, basically. And the people need that now, I think.
And that's what we do here.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. We do.
It's different to be doing. I know, understand it. It's different
in that situation, they needed somebody. You know, that they were trying to do something. So, and I stayed there, and I was shouting. If you see in the videos, I'm shouting, you know, save our kids and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't go down there and do a speech. I should have done maybe, but and I'm not really good at that sort of stuff. But it, you know, I've really felt the need. They wanted somebody to say, somebody who appeared to have the authority or the personality to say, this, you're right to be here, guys, because this is what's happening to us is dreadful, really. They knew why they were angry. They knew they were angry. Yeah. They knew some of the reasons they were angry, but they need somebody to tell them all the reasons they're angry, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about potential heroes here. I think that's kind of what I wanted to ask you. A plea from the heart, Nick. Yeah. I don't know if it's happening on Saturday, by the way. Yeah. Is it? I don't know.
I don't know. It's something that I have been thinking about because I talk about it all the time.
The people need you.
You think the people need me. The people need somebody. Might not be me.
Well, maybe the people in Manchester need you. Yeah. Maybe you're not the national figure, but maybe the people in Manchester need somebody like you, basically.
We need more people involved. Yeah. I mean, because otherwise, we'll see this weekend. Yeah. If this has died a death.
Yeah. Well, I'm supposed to be going away this weekend, but I'm sort of saying to my wife, I kind of want to stay because I want to go and be with the people again. I want to support them.
Yeah.
You know, because it's and it sounds pathetic, but because I'm brown, I think that helped that I was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it actually helped that I was there because people were like. In fact, I think there was a guy behind me saying, "We're not racist. Look at these guys here," pointing to me and my sons. So you know, I was thinking, well, I'm not doing much, but at least my presence here
stops some of the accusations of
racism that these people have been subjected to. So, you know, I felt I was doing a little bit, crappy though it was, I felt I was doing something. And Jack did manage to save that guy's life by pulling those people off him. You know,
and the press reported that as white guys jump only a black man at a demonstration.
Yeah, of course they did. Yeah, of course they did. They didn't say the guy hurled a lighted flare into the centre of a crowd that nearly hit a little girl. They didn't say that. They just said white thugs attack a black guy. I think the final question really, Nick, which is two questions. What next, Nick? And then added to that, civil war. Because I know you've written an article about civil war, so I wanted to ask you. Because that's another thing that Elon Musk said. He said this will only end in civil war.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think violence is here to stay for a good time now. It'll either be mass violence that we've seen that will carry on, or if that doesn't carry on, then there's going to be tit for tat violence, because that's what young men do. There'll be young men sat somewhere with their friends in a pub or in a bedroom now going, let's go get one of those Muslims. And there'll be Muslim people sat somewhere going, let's go beat up some white people, let's find someone on their own. So that's definitely going to happen.
And who's going to win that one? Because there's a lot more white people than there are Muslims out there in this country.
And this is what I've been warning minorities about for decades, that there's far too many white people in this country. You can't win this battle. But young people are stupid and can take on the world and don't understand consequences. You live in a community where they're all Muslim, you think, well, I'm safe here. So I don't know. The lid is off the jar now. I can't see the lid going back on the jar.
Yeah.
We will see this weekend coming up if more violence happens, because there's been violence almost every day now. This weekend coming, we will find out. The police are stretched. You know, there's less police officers than there were before. We've got so many towns, they can't be everywhere. If you wanted to cause trouble now, it's so easy to do it. You've got social media. You can organise where you're going to meet if that's what you want to do, cause trouble. The government are not helping. The government is stoking the flames of this. So I think Elon's right. We are risking civil war, and it only takes one or two people to do something horrendous. We have guns in this country. There was a clip online today of some Asian Muslim guy with an AK-47.
No.
Yeah, saying...
Where?
I don't know. It was just... I think his face was on it and that, saying, I'm coming for the EDL.
It was on Twitter or something.
Yeah, it'd be Twitter.
Yeah.
Gun might not have been real. It might have been replica. But that's the message you're sending out.
Yeah, but there are real guns.
The real guns out there, you know, it wouldn't take much for some career criminals white career criminals to go, we've had enough of this. We've got some grenades. We've got some Uzis. Let's throw some grenades in the mosque and we'll shoot whoever comes out. It wouldn't take much for some drug-dealing Muslims who have got weapons to say, let's drive past, let's go in the city centre and we'll shoot some people. Or let's drive around our area, any white people will kill them. That doesn't take much to do. And the second one of them happens,
it's off.
It will trigger a whole set of extreme violence. So what we're waiting for now is some nutcase to do something extremely serious, which will just trigger everything else. So civil war, to a certain extent, could happen overnight. It just depends who's going to do the atrocity first, and then there'll be a backlash from everybody. Then we'll also see who teams up with who. So I can, you know, let's say that happens. Let's say some Muslims kill some white people. then some white people go to kill some Muslims, but they turn out to be Hindu, because most people don't know the difference and are idiots. So they kill 3 Hindu people. What do the Hindus do now? Do we join the Muslims to fight the whites, or do we
I
fight
don't know the Hindus like the Muslims.
Exactly. But when you're fighting for your life,
Yeah.
who do we join? Then we've got Somalians, we've got the Caribbeans. Who are they going to join? So it's not as complicated as just 2 sides. This is a multi-dimensional potential civil war where there could be up to 6, 7, 8 groups all killing each other. What happens when the Muslims go to the gay village and plant some bombs and kill all the homosexuals? And what happens?
The gays are pro-Palestine. I've seen lots of pro-Palestine queers.
Yeah. So what happens to that then? It's all interconnected.
Yeah.
And
that was another thing in that march. There were gays for Palestine. They don't get it, do they?
They do. You don't get it. So the gays for Palestine are basically communists who want everything tore down so they can rebuild a socialist utopia. The best way to tear everything down is to support all these terrorist groups and people who want to tear it all down. So even though we don't agree with Hamas, if they're willing to pull the West down for us to take over and build a socialist utopia, then we're queers for Palestine.
Even though we won't go there because we'll get thrown off a building.
Yeah. So they know these things, or most of them know these things, but my enemy's enemy is my friend. So at this moment in time, we hate the West and capitalists, so we'll support Hamas because we all want the same thing at the moment.
I think the disappointing thing, and I take your points about civil war. I think you're right. Something could happen. We're in a very febrile environment now. The young girls being killed was a spark.
Yeah.
But now it's simmering now, isn't it? There's definitely something now there that there's a, what do they call it? There's a pot ready to boil over or explode.
We had that Kurdish immigrant in the tube who pushes someone on the rails. He didn't like the way he looked at him.
Correct. Yes, he disrespected him.
So if that's enough to do that,
yes.
What are other people around the country thinking?
Yeah. He actually said, what did he say? He actually said, yes, he was feeling disrespected.
Yeah. So that's enough to try to kill him under a train. So you just watched your mosque get stoned and assaulted. Is that enough for some radical Muslims to kill white people?
Yeah, definitely.
As a white person, you've just seen, you know about the mass rapes, Muslims are walking the streets now with weapons. Is that enough now for you to go kill some of them? And the answer to both those things is yes.
Yeah.
There'll be people within our communities who are capable of doing that because these people would have killed somebody anyway.
I think the violence for the Muslims is an easier thing for them, isn't it? Because of their ideology and their belief in terms of their death, what happens to them when they die, in terms of the idea that they are kind of fighting for, they're meant to fight for their religion, to make their religion, and everybody's got to submit to Allah, haven't they?
Yeah, but then on the other side, you can say it's easy for white young men in this country to do it because they love the country, they're patriots, they'll give their lives for this country. Doesn't take much for young men to fight and die.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much.
And that's one of the beautiful things about young men, actually.
Yeah.
That they as you say,
they're designed for that.
They're designed for that. They don't understand the consequences when they're that age and things like that. And that's why we win wars, isn't it?
And that's why we're being invaded now and the West is collapsing, because we've bred those traits out of so many people, and now we're just big pussies and we'll accept anything, we'll tolerate anything, and that's why we're dying as the Western civilization.
I'm more optimistic. I think a lot of young men now are tough, understand it or whatever, but they are aware.
Those men still exist, but they're not as many as they would have been 50 years ago.
And they're being held down by Starmer's police state and all that sort of jazz as well. So they do, I think they do exist. Sorry, we moved off the point. Sorry, we were talking about the Civil War, and then we started talking about. Sorry, I apologise. I can't remember what it was now. So Civil War, you think is possible if the right spark happens at that time? Yes.
It's guaranteed if the government doesn't start getting a grip. If Keir Starmer would have said the right things most of those protests wouldn't have gone ahead. A lot of the violence wouldn't have gone ahead. Some of it still would have done, but most of it would not have done, because most people are law-abiding and would want to believe the Prime Minister, even if he lied to us, because they always lie to us. We would have took that at face value, but he hasn't. And if there was a spark, one spark killed those 3 girls and led to all this.
Yeah.
If there's another spark now on any side, even if it's not really connected, people will join the dots and say it is connected. It's an open tinderbox, and we're setting fireworks off. It just takes one spark from a firework to hit that tinderbox, and I know it's real, because today through a friend, I've been privy to several conversations today of one woman who's working from home today because she doesn't want to leave her home because she's scared stiff. There's reports online and stories online of Muslim women don't want to leave the house today with hijabs on because they're scared, and all this is understandable. And their men and their male family members are listening to these stories and are going, no. So it's building. It's a pressure cooker.
Yeah,
It's
I think
building
you're right.
and building and building.
I think it's sensible. It's like when I I was driving here, I saw a couple of father or mother with a couple of young girls. I was actually worried. I was actually thinking, I hope they're thinking about, just keeping an eye on them in case there's any danger or anything like that. I would never normally think that when I drive past. I'm even worrying about my kids, and they're all adults now. So, although in the end, the boys actually pulled me out of trouble at the thing. Anyway, so yeah, I think we'll end it there. Wise words, Nick. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could do the following 3 things: please like any videos you see, subscribe, don't contribute to Nick's police fund, whatever you do, because that's the worst idea ever. Nick Buckley, MBE, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers, I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.